We're talking to Congressman Tim Bishop of the 1st Congressional District, which is almost all of the Long Island. It seems to be your district.
It's about, I think it's about 70% at least of the landmass of Long Island, about a quarter of the population of Long Island. But I have basically the easternmost 85 miles of Long Island. So
people don't understand how long Long Island is.
Yes, that's very true.
Tell me, you know, in the days that I served in the Congress, life is quite different.
Yeah.
How do you see Congress today?
I'm to be honest, I'm very troubled with how the Congress currently operates, and I've even seen it change in the 12 years that I've been serving. I was elected in '02, sworn in '03, and I think, I know that the level of bipartisan comity has declined. I mean, it was when I talk to the people who have been there a long time, they tell me that when I first came in '03, that things were much worse than they had been in the Bob Michael, Tip O'Neill days, and now it's dramatically worse than it was when I first came in. And my own view is that the election of 2010 was sort of a watershed election in terms of the functioning of the Congress and the ability of the Congress to resolve its difficulties on a bipartisan basis. That election, as you well know, we had a very angry, there was a lot of anger in the country. We had a very angry electorate. As a consequence, we had a great many very angry candidates who won. And so we now have a lot of angry congressmen. And I just think that has detracted from the ability of Congress to do its work. Every now and then we can find an issue around which we can build bipartisan consensus, such as this water development, Water Resources Development Act that I work so hard on. But those issues are few and far between. And so I think the influence of the Tea Party that came to the Congress in 2010, my own view, has been a very corrosive influence on our ability to work together. And then there were some more Tea Party people who came in 12. So it's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
I understand it. It's hard for me to understand this because the years that I served in Congress, and I never served in the minority, so I don't know the position that you were in. But in the years that I served in Congress, there was a great degree of comity and cooperation. The fact is that I served in the days of Tip O'Neill, and we crossed party lines. In fact, when I was chairman of the POWMIA issue or the narcotics, I appointed Republicans as chairman of my subcommittees. So it went entirely different to today. Do you see any future?
I think there's hope. I'll give you an example. I serve on two committees, the Transportation Committee and the Education Committee. The Transportation Committee, when I first came into the Congress, was a committee that was characterized by the bipartisan cooperation that existed. And we passed a surface transportation bill with hardly any dissenting votes. We passed a Water Resources Development Act in '07 with hardly any dissenting votes, and then overrode the veto of President Bush of that bill with, I think only like 30 people voting to uphold the veto. So we were able to do things in a bipartisan way. That changed in 2011. The Congress, the 112th Congress, 2011-2012, was a Congress in which even the Transportation Committee, we sort of reverted to our partisan positions, and the majority drafted a reauthorization of the highway bill. Absolutely no input from the minority at all, unheard of in the Transportation Committee, completely unheard of. Now, under the chairmanship of Bill Schuster, Republican from from Pennsylvania. You may have served with his father.
I served with his father, yeah.
Who was a model of running the Transportation Committee on a bipartisan basis. Bill is a good friend, and he is determined, and I've not talked to him about this, but I'm confident that he wants his legacy to be the same as his father. That he
They did a good job at that time.
did a fabulous job, and in my opinion, Bill is doing a fabulous job of reaching out to the minority and returning to the days when we were the Transportation Committee, and if there were any battles, it was the Transportation united on both sides of the aisle against the leadership of the Congress to make sure that our positions were adequately supported and adequately presented. So that's an example of the way it can work. I mean, this Water Resources Development Act was the first substantive piece of legislation that the Congress undertook after we returned from the government shutdown. So there were, emotions were running pretty high. There was a fair amount of anger, and here we, the Transportation Committee, came together and passed a bill, I think 417-4. And so I'm very proud of that, and it shows what you can do.
And if you can get together.
If you can get together, and I give all the credit in the world to Chairman Schuster, because every single thing we did on that bill, both majority and minority had input on, and he just insisted that we do it. And we sat across the table from one another, he and I, and he would say he couldn't live with an idea that I had, but he could do this. I would say I couldn't live with an idea that he had, but we could live with this, and we worked it out. That's the legislative process. I mean,
Sure.
And it's our democracy working the way it's supposed to. Unfortunately, that's an example that exists almost in isolation in terms of what we of how we should be functioning. My other committee is the Education Committee, highly partisan. I mean, every single bill that I shouldn't say every single bill, virtually every single bill that we have considered in our committee has been a partisan bill written by one party, the majority party. Absolutely no.
Maybe that's why George Miller decided to.
I don't know. I mean, it may be. I mean, I know it's frustrating for George. I mean, he's been in the Congress 38 years, and every one of us wants to make a difference, make a contribution, and here's a man with an enormous reservoir of knowledge and experience, and none of it was being taken advantage of.
Henry Waxman.
I think those are Now you served with both of them.
That's right.
Yeah. And two, very good men. And the other thing, I mean, a lot of, on the Republican side, I mean, members of Congress that, were viewed as moderates, Jim Walsh from upstate New York,
Right.
and Amo Houghton from upstate New York.
Yes, I certainly.
Yeah, you can't find a nicer man than Amo